Tam, It Takes Two to Tango.
Wrong game.
Yes, you're right, that is the wrong game. We're actually talking today about Split Fiction, which is the follow-up from Hazelight Studios to their 2021 game, It Takes Two. They are coming at us again with another co-op action-adventure game. There is couch and online split screen, so regardless of if you are sat next to someone or you're playing online, you'll always kind of see both of those perspectives. But we got to play 3 hours of it.
Yeah, a decent chunk of it. And I think the biggest takeaway on my part certainly was how much variety of gameplay there was in the short amount of time we had with it. It was pretty evident from the trailer that they showed off previously that they're trying to do a whole load of different styles of games, but it's still quite, not overwhelming, but impressive when you get in there and you realize, oh, here's an idea. Oh, they're done with that idea. It's almost Mario-like in the way that they kind of, Nintendo-like almost in the way that they're kind of like pulling in ideas, doing mechanics and then disposing of them.
So I loved It Takes Two, and I loved it for all those reasons you just mentioned about Split Fiction, is that it was always throwing new ideas at you. And in Split Fiction, they get to take from fantasy and science fiction, because the crux of the story, the narrative backbone of it is that you play as Mio and Zoe, these two authors who go to this book publisher, and they think what's going to happen is that they're going to get their works published. What actually happens is they are kind of their ideas are being harvested, and due to some circumstances, an argument with whoever's running whatever this experiment is, they join together and they are working in both of these worlds, and they're trying to collect these glitches or find these glitches in order to break out of it because they are trapped in their own imaginations.
Yeah, so they have two very, very different styles of stories, and it's interesting because it's not one specific story that either of them have created that's being harvested. It's almost like a retrospective. Any and all ideas that they've had previously are manifesting and being harvested by this company. But the kind of like opposing genre that they're working with is a nice foil for having these two characters who are also very, very different. One of them, I believe, Mio, is very quiet and is like quite reserved and doesn't do small talk. Unfortunately, she's been paired up with someone who is quite the opposite. Very
Zoe,
chatty.
I feel not attacked, but I did see a lot of myself in Zoe. She's British, loves fantasy, but she's also very, I guess, naive to the ways of the world. And, you know, she really thinks this is going to be her big break. She's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And, you know, she's kind of the happy-go-lucky one, while Mio is the more, I think, realistic one.
Which is kind of in line with how I am quite like, don't really want to, this looks a bit sketchy. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Yeah.
But no, we played for 3 hours, and like you said, just constantly surprised. And I mean, I would expect no less from Hazelight. I was just constantly surprised with everything that they were throwing. They were throwing big, huge action set pieces at us, and then, you'd be on basically, it was inspired by Tron, this kind of light cycle. There'd be Akira references. There would be, in the sci-fi section, there was a soundtrack that Vangelis, somewhere Vangelis is like, yes. Yeah. And so for Blade Runner fans, you'll kind of enjoy that. And then on the fantasy side, there's all these trolls. They're poking fun at the genre in this kind of loving way. And it is all woven together by these mechanics that are just so interesting and so fun and do require that working together. You and I mean, the whole room at some points, I was taking my headphones off at some point and everyone was just going, no, left, no. And then, there'd be big, laughter, there'd be people cheering when we got through some stuff. Because I will say, harder, I think, than It Takes Two. Just a little bit. There were some sections in particular that we had just spoken to Joseph Faris, and he had said that, like a 6-year-old had beaten it, and that was humbling. Humbling.
No, I don't believe that one bit. That pinball section? No shot. There's no shot. So the gameplay, it's also like sectioned off in these side missions almost. I think they were primarily in the fantasy world, but they every now and then you'd go off on a little side goof. And the one that we did was like we got transformed into pigs, and we had 2 different styles of traversal. Mine was like a fart. I could fart that would launch me around, and your one was like you can turn into a spring and bounce. And so it was a case of like solving very small puzzles and like traversing doing some platforming using our 2 abilities, and it goes in some very humorous, unexpected places where, let's just say, by the time we were done with these piggies, there was ketchup and mustard involved, which was like really funny, and it felt like low stakes kind of cooperation and coordination after areas that are a little more high stakes, because the futuristic one was like a bike chase, which was intense, during which at one point, like, I was driving this bike like through over buildings and stuff, and at one point a bomb was about to go off and you were trying to deactivate it by putting some text into a phone, but it was really difficult to do.
Yeah, I was doing like a prove you're not a robot, put in this security code to try
Capture.
and defuse this bomb. Yes, and then there was read through all of the terms and conditions, oh my god, and it was just really fun, and there really wasn't a dull moment. Like I said, we played for 3 hours, and it
went by like a breeze.
Yeah, it was just really fun, and like, I think It Takes Two, because I loved Brothers. I didn't play A Way Out, but I was so surprised by It Takes Two, and I think a lot of people were, just in terms of the breadth of content, how long it was, all these ideas, and I've been so excited to see what Hazelight are going to do next. And Split Fiction was, at least from what I played, from what you played, was a really great indicator of that. And we also chatted to Joseph Fares, and he was a laugh.
Yeah, it was good. Like, by the time we were talking, I mean, we started our interview pretty early, so we didn't have much to use from the game-wise, so we kind of just talked about the overall development. But by the time we were done playing, I was like, damn, I really want to talk to him now that I've played this, but we weren't able to, because stuff like the side-scrolling shooter section, where it was like almost like Ikaruga, where we both had one color that we could interact with, and it put together boss fights where you're being chased by a giant mech and you have to very quickly platform, or the pinball section where you effectively turn into the morph ball from Metroid and have to, like, you were the ball so you could move around and jump, and I was the actual board, so I was the plungers and the flippers and that kind of stuff, and that section was tricky. The platforming was kind of required a little tweaking, but even when it was frustrating, we were still having fun, which is a good sign.
I think it is really, and I mean, I will say that they kind of crushed this with It Takes Two as well, where restarts are very, very quick, and they don't set you too far back. I think there was one checkpoint that both of us went like, that's a bit far back, but everything else was kind of jumping you straight back into it. And even in boss fights, if one of us had died, and there was one point where it was me quite a lot in that big boss fight that we did at the end, but as long as the other person stays alive, and you could just hammer a button to get back into the action. And I think the thing I will say about it is that it just doesn't let up. And I mean that in a really positive way, in terms of the pacing, introducing new mechanics, making sure that you are engaged and getting you back into the game on all levels. It is a really great start and really promising, and I'm excited to play more.
Yeah, we did like a few sections just from various points in the game, and by the time we were done, we could tell that the two characters were like warming up to each other. And I was pretty interested in their journey, as well as the kind of underlying story behind, you know, what is this corporation is doing. So I found myself pretty invested in the narrative as well. It's not super important. Like, I don't think it's going to be the be-all, end-all. I'm sure it'll be good because they have a, track record of doing good narrative. But even if you come at this from just a gameplay perspective, I felt very satisfied with what I played. And Joseph Fares, when we were talking to him, he was like, I'm extremely confident in this game. And it wasn't like him being his, showboaty kind of personality. It was him going like, no, I really believe in this game. Like, if everyone in this room came to me and said it sucks, I would still say, no, this is a good game. And by the time we finished playing, I was like, in that 3 hours that we played, that confidence was definitely warranted.
Yeah. So it is not long until Split Fiction comes out. I can't wait to play the rest of it. For more on Split Fiction, make sure to stay tuned to GameSpot.